All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into our section 2 notes here. If I can set it up. There we go. Okay, so in chapter 1, if you've watched those, which you should have, we talked about the first, basically how the first people came to America. The Americas, North, South America, Central America. Okay, here in chapter 2, we're going to talk about the first Europeans that come to the Americas and kind of how all that started in what will become known as the Age of Exploration. Okay, so with the fall of the Roman Empire in 476, Western Europe is basically kind of cut off from the rest of the world for a while. And about 200 years later, we see the emergence of a new religion called Islam, and their followers, who are Muslims, start to kind of dominate that area. So the Catholic Church is going to play a big role in Western Europe at this time. Well, about the year 1095, we're going to see Christians, or these Catholics, launch a series of what were called crusades. And what the crusades were was basically just these crusades to go out and try to bring holy lands or holy sites and get them back into the hands of Christians, places in the Middle East that the Muslims had taken over. Okay, so I think there's like a total of 9 or 10 of these crusades. They do have some success in taking back some of the holy lands. Okay, but one thing that it does that they weren't expecting, these crusaders will meet with Arab merchants throughout the Middle East. Well, these Arab merchants will start to sell goods from Asia and China, things like sugar and spices, silk, and other things that are of very high interest to these crusaders. Well, they will then take these goods back to Western Europe, where there will become a huge demand for these goods from Asia and from China. Also, around 1200, a man by the name of Marco Polo, who you probably may have heard of, not just the swimming game, okay, but he was an actual person, and he is going to travel to Asia, to China. They say he even went as far east as Japan, but he's going to bring back certain goods. He's also going to write a book called Travels, talking about all the things that he witnessed, all the different, like I said, the goods that he brought back, the people that he encountered. And so with that book, people will read that. There becomes even a more of an interest in goods from the Middle East. Well, early on, these Arab merchants are charging very high prices for these things. And so the goods that are brought back will be brought back to some city-states, some Italian city-states that had basically become the strong economic and cultural centers of that day. Okay, and those places being Pisa, Venice, and Genoa. Basically, these were the trade centers. Goods we brought back into those cities, they would then be sent to other places, sold there in those cities. So these cities are going to prosper when all these goods from Asia and China are being brought back. Well, they want to try to find a way to get around the Arab merchants because of the high prices. So eventually that's going to lead to future exploration, which we'll get to in just a second, to try to get around paying those high prices from those Arab merchants. By the 1300s, there's a lot of changes going on in Europe. They're trying to get back to kind of their roots. They're focusing more on art and architecture from ancient Rome, ancient Greece. They're studying more and more science. Inventions are being made, books are being written, paintings are being painted. Just this massive return to art and architecture and science. And you've probably heard of it before, but this time was known as the Renaissance or the Rebirth. Okay, people like Leonardo da Vinci and his inventions and things that he did, and paintings, Michelangelo and his famous paintings and sculptures. Okay, people you've probably heard of in dealing with the Renaissance. But that's this time period in Europe when all this is going on. Okay. Well, not only is there a change in these in the arts and the architecture and different things. This is when we see exploration start to really pick up in this region. So to get around these Arab kingdoms and these Arab merchants, they're going to try to find a water route, really any route that bypassed the Italian city-states and the Arab kingdoms. Okay, they thought we can travel to Asia ourselves. We can get these goods there. We can come back, sell them, and make a profit off of those things. We're basically just bypassing the middleman. We're not going to go through the Arab merchants. We're not going to go through the Italian city-states of Pisa and Genoa and those places. We're going to travel around. We're going to find these things ourselves, bring them back, and then we'll sell them and make a profit. So that's what they decided to do. These strong monarchs had risen to power in Europe. Monarch is just a king or a queen. And there were basically 4 kingdoms in Europe that kind of took charge of this early exploration. Those would be Spain, France, England, and Portugal. And those are basically the 4 groups that we'll talk about in this early age of exploration and places they went, things they encountered. And so we'll kind of talk about each one of those groups independently as we go. The first couple that we'll talk about will be Portugal and Spain. And then we'll get to England and France later, because those will be the groups that actually come to settle in what we know as the present day United States, and how we kind of got started from that. Excuse me. And we talked about the whole Renaissance period, these new scientific and technological advances that were being invented and created. And so these explorations are going to be possible because of these new inventions and all the new technology that is coming about. You hear the word technology. Technology doesn't just mean phones and computers and electrical stuff. Anytime new things are created and invented, that's new technology. And so there's going to be new technology here in the early 1400s that will make these explorations possible. And we're going to talk about some of those advances. First, you have what was called the astrolabe. Okay, there's a picture of it there. Not real sure how that works. Okay, but they were able to use this. Okay, it was actually invented by the ancient Greeks. Now it's being, I guess, probably perfected, changed a little bit to make it even better. But it basically uses the position of the stars. And so obviously they're studying astronomy. By studying the stars and those things, they could use this astrolabe. They could determine direction, which way they were going. They could determine latitude. If you don't know what latitude is, it's just degrees north or south of the equator. And they could also determine local time by using this astrolabe and the position of the stars. Okay, so again, new technology is helping allow them to explore and go different places. Yeah, the compass. Obviously, we all know what a compass is. If you didn't know, it was actually invented by the Chinese, but it uses the needle and the magnet and helps to determine the direction of magnetic north. If you've ever used a compass, you know that when you hold it, the arrow always points north. And so then you can determine, if you know which way is east, west, south from there, you can determine which direction you're going. you don't know east and west, you're trying to go east and you get it backwards, you're going to be going the wrong way for a little while. So if you ever use a compass, make sure you know your directions. The Caravel was another technological advancement that was created. This is actually a ship. Okay, it was a 3-masted ship, and really the large mast. You had this here, you had here, and then you had the big triangular sail at the back. And I think more often than not, most of the sails were triangular in shape. But the Caravel, they were actually a little smaller, but they could actually carry more cargo. They could carry about 130 tons of cargo while they were traveling. And the way they were built, they could travel in very shallow water. So this allowed these early explorers to travel along the coastlines. They could travel up rivers, and they could explore different places that they couldn't have before with the larger ships that they were used to. They were more maneuverable, easier to turn around, go in and out of different places, and so some of these early explorers will actually use these. We'll talk about Columbus here in the next few sections. His ships were caravels and the places he went and things he did, but much better than the previous ships. Okay, so I know this is short, not a whole lot in section 1, but watch these, write these down, and we'll continue on. I will say we're going to kind of do something different here in chapter 2. I put it on your announcements, but I'm basically going to publish all your assignments. Work on them at your own pace. When you finish one, submit it. I'll grade it, but they're all due by the time we take our chapter 2 test. And the kids at school are doing the same thing. They're going to work on their own. We'll go over our notes as we go throughout the week, and we'll see how this works. And if I think this works better, we'll continue to do this instead of just going one section at a time. So if you have any questions, let me know. Email me, send me a message on Canvas, whatever you need to do.